No.
CEOs and CFOs have
even
openly
before we go to homeless people. But look, let's talk about the substance. Let's talk about the substance.
They've openly said that they lied about it. Like
no.
Yes, they did. This article is literally that.
Maybe look, you're cherry picking.
Cenk has literally been cherry picking this whole entire fucking conversation. That is what you've been doing. You have been cherry picking shit, my guy. Hasan has way more patience than I do. Hello, everyone, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today, we're going to be doing Thanksgiving coverage, and I'm going to be reacting to it. Basically, it's when Hasan Piker and his uncle Cenk sit down on Thanksgiving Day and they debate. Alas, creating Thanksgiving. So make sure you like, subscribe, comment for more videos like this, and let's get into it.
Ladies and gentlemen, Cenk Gurga is here in the building. It's Thanksgiving time, baby. It's Thanksgiving time. Woo! Unc is here.
Okay,
what is that?
I got a Thanksgiving present for you. Okay?
You do? Okay. Oh my God.
How much do you love this? I know you're a big fan of Hunter Biden.
I know. This reminds me of one of the first.
I'll get you a new one.
It's.
I would wear that shirt. I would wear a Free Hunter shirt. I would legit go to Tulsa, Oklahoma and wear it. I love that shirt. That's a good shirt.
Come on, that's pretty good.
No, it's sick.
You know who came up with that idea?
Who?
I did.
I love that.
Free Hunter, baby. So you know what we're going to talk about, the trans issues. So on trans issues, as an example, over 60% of Americans agree. Of course, they should have the same constitutional rights, same rights to housing, employment, rules against discrimination, etc.
But there's going to be a big but coming here, knowing Cenk.
Does 1/3 of the country disagree? Yeah, sad day for them. 2/3 of the country agrees trans people should be protected. I'm 100% on board for that, right? And if you're a right winger and you go, no man, they're weird, they're different, they're blah blah blah, and I'm gonna hate them. Well, good luck to you, brother. I'm not gonna hate them, and I'm gonna protect them. So that didn't work for them. So they went digging.
Yeah. So what you're describing is what I was explaining to you, that the Christian groups, the right wing Christian nationalist groups, in the aftermath of the failed initiative to do a trans bathroom bill in North Carolina, when all this stuff was happening, there was definitely a different attitude overall. I think part of that was because, just like you also recognize, most Americans, like they just think trans people are being discriminated against and unjustly. And the other reason was because it just seemed like cruel and unusual for no particular reason. So what these Christian family groups did was go back to the drawing board, go and focus group and test different messages.
Yep.
And they arrived at two key points that were resilient. Americans don't necessarily care about trans issues all that much, but they do care about meritocracy. And what is the one place where there's true meritocracy in the eyes of many Americans? Now, there's, still not perfect meritocracy, but sports. Sports is the one area where if you dominate, if you're good, you're going to dominate. If you're dominant, then you're going to get elevated. They packaged anti-trans sentiment with sports, and specifically children's sports. And that is where we arrive at 60% of the country, or even larger percentages than that, don't think trans women should be participating in sports with cis women, specifically trans girls, competing in athletic endeavors with cis girls. Listen, here's the thing. You understand this to be a distraction.
So I think Hasan approached this in a really smart way, because he kind of laid out the reason as to why Republicans are talking about the intersection of sports and trans people, and why that conversation is happening so much. And I think why he laid it out that way is because he knows that Cenk is of the belief that trans people should not be playing in the sport that they are assigning into, right? So for example, if you're a trans woman, Cenk does not believe that you should be able to play on a women's sports team. And Hasan knows that, so he approached it in a way where he explained where this ideology and the popularity of it came from. And I think that way he didn't really attack Cenk. It was more like, hey, let's kind of understand where this is coming from, and then we can have a educated conversation about it.
It would serve us both well, openly recognize, and I think you do as well, this hyper focusing on, trans athletes at the high school level all the way to the collegiate level is a distraction that most Americans might have an opinion on, but don't necessarily care about. It's not a major driver of turnout. It's not something that people go out and vote for.
I don't agree.
Okay, well, we can have that argument in a second.
What did I tell you? I knew it was going to come out. I've been watching Uncle Cenk for a while now. I know what he thinks.
Part of the reason why is that it's just simply not a real issue, because do you know the number of trans athletes nationally?
So I know that
under the collegiate level?
No, it's microscopic.
It's
That's
40.
why.
The number is 40.
Yeah, and so like 20. states, 20 red states passed a law against transgender girls participating in high school sports, and they couldn't name one transgender girl in their state that participated in high school sports.
Yes.
So that's exactly my point. We start with agreement.
Even Spencer Cox vetoed the bill in Utah originally, and he actually wrote like a pretty compelling argument as to why he was vetoing it. And governors like Andy Bashar have actually won by higher margins after openly defending trans people in the past in a state like Kentucky, for example.
So look, we start with a point of agreement, which is that the right wing uses a wedge issue to drive a wedge between us. They go looking for it, and they do it based on identity politics.
Okay.
So we totally agree on that. We totally agree that it's a microscopic issue that affects almost no one in the country.
It does actually impact a lot of cis women. There's more cis women than there are trans women, and there are a lot of young girls that this could technically impact, because now you have bills like the one in Ohio, the penis inspection bills, like the one that they have in Ohio, where like one of the parents from the opposing team could be like, that's a trans girl, and then they have to literally go and traumatize this like young girl who in many instances is not. Statistically, it is highly unlikely that that person is trans to begin with.
No matter what end of the spectrum you land on when it comes to trans people in, athletics, you have to admit that some women just produce more testosterone than other women. It's just a fact. It's happened multiple times where a woman was about to go to the Olympics or whatever, and then she got disqualified because she produces more testosterone than what the average production of testosterone in a woman is. That is very common. And so in high school, when you're a girl, you're already probably getting bullied for maybe being taller or more muscular than other women. And then you have some evangelical chud mom saying, oh, that's really a man. And then now you have to get inspected by people who work for the government, because working for a school is technically working with the government, right? People working for the government having to pull you aside and do an inspection, like that can ruin a girl's life in high school. It can be disastrous, not just on a macro level with just her, but just like on a more societal level as well, when she goes to school or with her friends or talking to people, etc. And so what I think people like Cenk don't realize is that these laws have a lot of trickle effects on people. And I'm only commenting on this because I was bullied all throughout my childhood and, K through 12, I was bullied. Like, my name is Ariana. People would call me Hairyana because I had a lot of hair. Now that I look back on it, it's funny. But as a kid, it was traumatizing, you know what I mean? And no one wanted to take me to prom. And these things sound so stupid when I say it out loud right now, right? Because it's like, oh, no one wanted to take me to prom. People called me Hairyana. Sure, but these instances have impacted my self-esteem in a way where I still deal with it. That little girl that got bullied for most of her childhood and teen years, that doesn't leave. You don't just get rid of it. But you guys get the point. I just think what people don't understand is that these laws have a huge trickle-down effect, not just on the singular person, like not just on the general community of trans people, but on singular people who have nothing to do with this as well. And it's not fair. If you create more testosterone in your body, you don't have to be punished for it. It's just how your body is. Like, you can't do anything about it.
But this is the reality. The reason I make a distinction between high school and professional sports is because in high school, what you're saying is, like Ohio, if I really want to institute this, now I got to check everybody's genitals, and there's got to be a genital checker, right? And let me guess, tons of Republican older men are going to volunteer to check the genitals of our high school kids. And I hate it. I don't want it. But when you get to the professional level, you get to the Olympic level, you guys make a giant mistake. You fall right into their trap and you go, oh yeah, sure, they should be able to compete. When the overwhelming majority of the American people do not agree with you, you should let the Olympics and the professional sports decide it on their own. It is not a constitutional right. They have no so-called right to participate in the WNBA. I don't have a right to participate in the NBA. So number one, I don't agree when you go to those extremes. And number two, does it affect elections? Well, we had an overwhelming answer to that because Donald Trump ran the anti-trans ad, which was not about hating trans people, although of course it was perceived as such by a lot of people. And so, what it was saying, hey, you guys are giving free surgery to undocumented immigrants who are detainees who are trans. It's too much.
We have lost the plot. Okay, so first of all, Cenk is regurgitating the transgender alien surgeries that Trump made.
She went out in Minnesota and wanted to let criminals that killed people, that burned down Minneapolis, she went out and raised money to get them out of jail. She did things that nobody would ever think of. Now she wants to do transgender operations on illegal aliens that are in prison.
Okay, so Cenk is regurgitating this talking point right here. I don't even think I have to go through why that's such a ridiculous conversation. Because listen, if you're against trans people, just say that. But if you want to have a whole entire argument that undocumented immigrants are having reassignment surgery in ICE detention centers, it's a bit much. I don't know any report of undocumented people having surgeries in detention centers. If you guys find one, send it to me. But that's not a huge issue for you to grab on and turn it into a whole entire reality, because it's not. If you want to talk about inflation, sure, I'll have that conversation with you, because that's a reality for the majority of Americans. I went grocery shopping this past week. I was trying to be healthy. I paid more than $100 for a week worth of groceries. And I think people like Cenk don't understand that the working class people are struggling with much bigger, we have much bigger fish to fry.
And you dig in, and now we're on a losing ground for no reason at all.
Can you tell me who on the Democratic Party's campaign was actually saying, like, no, we have to issue bottom surgery for undocumented migrants, outside of Kamala Harris saying that in an ACLU questionnaire in 2019 when faced with the question, what will you do for trans people? She just gave that answer, which was a bad answer to give regardless. But was there like a hyper focus from the Democratic Party's campaign that I'm missing?
So Trump starts running the ad, and it instantly jumps to the most effective ad according to Trump's internal numbers and according to Kamala Harris's internal numbers. So at that point,
that's also not true. David Plouffe literally said on the Pod Save America autopsy that they engaged in that the ad actually wasn't all that impactful at all. I think that the only way that ad is even remotely sticky, when or even remotely effective, when I still question the legitimacy of how effective the ad was, because there's plenty of examples of people actually defending trans people and then winning by resounding numbers all across the country.
It depends on what issue, though, Haas.
It's because the Democrats they stand for nothing. There is nothing that unites the base of support for the Democratic Party. They are this weird big tent, third way neoliberal party that is constantly pointing to institutional norms and defending this notion of civility. If that is your overarching campaign strategy, then yes, if you stand for nothing, you will, people can tell others what you actually stand for. They can reframe what you actually stand for and say this is the type of stuff that they care about actually. And therein lies the problem. If it was like a Bernie Sanders style candidacy, if Kamala Harris was like, I want Medicare for all, that Americans are suffering, I want to fix the housing crisis.
He is so right. If you say that you believe everyone should have Medicare for all, not only do you pull in the working class white people that Kamala Harris lost by a landslide, but also like this is all the umbrella. Like, yeah, everyone gets Medi-Cal, even prisoners, you idiot. Like, I'm for all of this. But then when you turn it into like trans people in prisons get surgery, like let me be clear. I am fully in support of it. I am not someone that's against that. But just to be very clear, first of all, it doesn't resonate with all people. It resonates with queer people or people who are allies towards queer people, but a lot of people, especially the people that the Democrats need to pull in, which are white suburban moms, white working class blue collar men, they're going to sit there and be like, all right, cool. Like, what is that going to do for me? But if you sit there and you say, I want Medicare for all, I want people to have access to insurance, period, you grab a larger scope of people and you pull them in. And that's more of a winning strategy than saying, I care about this specific issue and this specific niche subject, rather than saying, I care about all of you. You are all equal. You all should have insurance, which is a much better strategy. And you know what? Then Trump would say, communist Kamala is a communist. Okay, let him say that. Let him look crazy, because people are going to listen to Kamala and her saying everyone should have free Medicare, and people are going to be like, yeah, you know what? I actually agree with that. You might not like it, but I agree with it. And that's just how it goes. That's why Bernie had such a successful campaign.
So that's number one.
Okay.
Number two, when you cave and capitulate the right-wing framing on these issues, the only thing you end up doing is basically admitting that the Republicans are right. And the Democrats have done this on immigration. The Democrats have done this on policing. The Democrats have allowed the Republicans to dominate the space over and over and over again. And they've done it with trans issues as well, or they're doing it now with trans issues as well.
I mean, when it came to things like immigration, it felt like they were both saying the same thing. Maybe I would convince myself that Democrats are better for immigration, but when I listened to both of them, it just sounded like they were both regurgitating the same talking points, just in different ways. I don't think Kamala Harris was pro-immigration whatsoever. I didn't get that vibe from her at all.
So let's do crime. So you and I had a huge debate about it, and you thought it's not going to affect elections, and it obviously did affect elections, Haas. So I mean, here in California, first of all, Donald Trump picked up 10 counties overall. He closed the gap between Kamala Harris and himself massively in California. Prop 36 passed with a 70% approval.
Yeah.
So the Democratic voters of California said, yes, crime is real, and yes, we hate it and do not want more crime. We want less crime. Those are Democratic voters.
So can I ask you something? Do you think that Californians love involuntary servitude, also known as slavery, in their prison structure?
So no, you guys, that's exactly my point, Haas. So that's a
they voted for it.
No, hold on. There's a prop that Hasan's talking about here in California that basically said we should get rid of slavery in the prisons, and it lost.
First of all, Prop 36, they had a lot of money, and they had a lot of money from corporate donors, right? So we're talking about companies like Home Depot and Now. Corporate donors were spending millions of dollars on Prop 36. And also there was a lot of misinformation around Prop 36 where they were sending out all this advertisements and all of that. Oh, crime is high. We need to make it a felony. Prop 36, basically turned petty crime into felonies and like greater, things that go on your record so that you get more punishment. Basically, we regressed back into mass incarceration, which was a huge problem back in the 90s. But when you say, well, majority of people voted for Prop 36, therefore we're tired of crime, you're completely negating the fact that corporations spent millions of dollars on advertisement and supporting that bill. You're completely negating the fact that most people don't understand the structures or what these props even mean. They don't. They just see, oh, crime? Okay, crime has gone up. Yes, we need to do something about it. I'm going to vote yes. Which is what happened with the prop that would have ended indentured servitude for prisoners. I made a video about it, and a lot of people in the comments were saying that the wording on that proposition was too confusing, which in my opinion is both the system's flaw, but it's also the person's flaw too, because you have to be very responsible with your vote. You need to Google the propositions. You need to understand what you're voting for and why you're voting for it and why it aligns with your core values. You should not just read a sentence of what is on the proposition and just say, okay, sure, the vibes are cool, I'm gonna vote yes, right? That's not how it works. They purposely word it confusingly. So what Cenk is doing, in my opinion, is very disingenuous. But the second point I was also going to get into is I fully believe in prison reform. I believe in rehabilitation, not more prisons, 100%. I believe in all of that. We passed Prop 47 a couple of years ago, and Prop 47 has done amazing things. They took so much money from the government and they poured it back into the community, and reoffenses plummeted. People actually were able to go get rehabilitated. They were able to have resources after they were let out of prison to where they wouldn't go back in. So if you look into Prop 47, it's actually a very successful, example of how rehabilitation actually works. But unfortunately, I think the problem with this is that the state of California will say, okay, if you steal under X amount of money, it's a misdemeanor. Okay, we're going to make it a little harder to arrest you if you do this crime, because the idea is to incentivize rehabilitation, but they don't fully implement it. For example, they don't fully implement rehabilitation programs. They don't have that in the prisons. They don't actually do things to really incentivize people going on the right track. They kind of do one thing and then they half-ass it. And of course, poverty plays into that role as well. When you look at a country like Portugal was going into the route of an opioid crisis. So Portugal was about to go into an opioid crisis, and what the government did was they decriminalized drugs across the whole entire nation, and they established a complete rehabilitative system from top to bottom. So for example, if you get caught with crack cocaine or if you get caught with heroin, you are given a ticket, but it's not a traditional ticket where you get a misdemeanor or you have to pay a fine. You have to go see a social worker, and then the social worker talks to you, says, okay, do you want to get clean? That person says no. If they say no, okay, we're gonna have a social worker meet up with you every week and give you clean utensils. They build a relationship with that person, and then when that person feels like they can trust them, they say, okay, I'm ready to get rehabilitated. And not only did Portugal completely reverse their opioid crisis, they were able to funnel more money to go after the distributors, not the people who are on the drugs on the streets, but the pimps and the people that were higher level drug dealers and whatnot. And they were essentially able to clean up the streets. It was very successful. When you half-ass it in places like California, it's not going to work because a decriminalization structure works from top to bottom. You have to fully implement it. You have to have social workers. You have to have a community building. They literally put methadone trucks on the street where people could just walk up and get free methadone. You need that structure.
And my thesis on why it lost, when of course the Democratic voters of California, if they understood what that meant, would say, oh, no, I don't want slavery in prisons. That's crazy.
Yeah.
But they voted against almost every left-wing ballot measure, including minimum wage, because they thought, oh, the left wing is the extreme wing. They're the pro-crime wing. They're the pro-super extreme positions. So even if I'm a California Democrat, I'm voting no on everything. If a Democrat proposes it, no. And that's why we got slaughtered in this election.
If I were to ask you, I think, do you think the people of Mississippi are more progressive than the broader California electorate? You would probably say no.
No, yeah, culturally no.
Having said that, in the state of Mississippi, when that same exact ballot initiative was clearly defined as slavery, it passed overwhelmingly. They voted against slavery in the prison structure.
Do you see how that makes my point?
No, my point is that the way you frame things certainly matter. It matters a lot because most people are not paying attention to anything. That's why you had people searching if Joe Biden had dropped the day before the election. That's why communication matters. That's why who you define as your enemies matter. So perception is important, and narrative in many instances is more important than the truth. I think this is something that you would agree with as well.
Then again, you get into short run, long run.
So in that process, something that fell apart for the Democrats and their unwillingness to actually fight back and counter message on anything because they're cowardly was the issue of crime. There's been a lot of analysis on why crime rates have gone down historically and are trending downwards once again, as they have since the 90s, which I know you're going to get mad at, but hold on. And that most surveys conducted on the matter show that Americans think that their neighborhoods and the crime has not increased in their neighborhoods, but actually crime has increased elsewhere. So why do they think that they're safe in their neighborhoods, but they still feel like crime is exploding in the country? I think it is because of the right-wing misinformation faucet.
Yeah, so there was a spike in crime during 2020, like the pandemic, but statistically, both national and state records in California shows that the crime numbers are going down, like drastically. The crime numbers actually have not been up since the 2020 pandemic. So this idea that crime is rampant and crime is happening and it's just all over the place is actually fundamentally false because crime has been on a downward trajectory.
Everyone is constantly in a holding pattern on whatever Republicans decide is the major point that they want to argue for. And because the Democratic Party basically operates as controlled opposition against them, they just sit there, they wait for the next talking points to come out so they can do a terrible job trying to address any of the truths of the matter, and they just get dominated over and over again. There's a second part of this, though. It's what you see. Not only has the crime rate actually gone down, and I think you recognize that as well, the National Crime Victimization Survey does not show like a major blip in unreported crimes. There is definitely more unreported crimes than before, and we can address why that's happening as well. But overall, the real reason why I think a lot of people see crime everywhere, and especially in cities, even though Republican and red states have significantly higher rates of crime than states like California do, the reason why most people fall into this trap of assuming that California is a crime-ridden shithole as opposed to like a place like Alabama or a place like South Carolina is because narrative is more important than the actual truth. Also, the reason why Californians themselves genuinely believe that this is also happening and no one is addressing it
Because it's actually happening.
No, it's because of what they perceive to be disorder and dysfunction and crime that is happening in every orifice of blue cities.
So
it's
Haas.
homeless, it's poverty, it's visible aspects of extreme poverty that in many instances can actually be a crime or will sometimes be criminalized.
The reason why people think crime is so high is because they perceive homeless people doing drugs on the street as a crime. And sure, you can believe that that's a crime because obviously someone shooting up dope on your street that you live on is not necessarily something that anyone would prefer prefer, but it's not a hardcore crime to where someone is breaking into your house. House break-ins have been at a historically low rate. General crime that is reported has been at a historically low rate. A homeless person in a tent outside of your house could be criminalized, but that does not mean it's a crime. Someone doing dope outside of your house, sure, not necessarily an environment that anyone would like to be around. I can agree with you on that. Still doesn't mean it's a crime unless it's criminalized. Now, you want to talk about how you feel uncomfortable because a person who's experiencing homelessness has an encampment down the street and is, shooting up dope. It's a system fault. And a lot of people might disagree with me. I get that. You're entitled to your opinion, obviously. I just don't think it's fair to, as Americans, to look at homeless people and blame them completely.
So let me address crime, then we'll get to homelessness. So on crime, you have to separate out national numbers from local numbers. Why? Because Tennessee didn't do the same things as California and New York did. So you have to look at, okay, when they tried different things, how did it work out? So the national numbers are totally irrelevant. So when you get to California, I looked it up this morning because I knew we were going to have this discussion. So pre-pandemic to now, violent crime up 15%, homicide up 15%. By the way, crime is complicated. Not every number goes up and down in the way that you would expect, or goes up all at once or goes down all at once.
What year to year are you comparing?
2019 to now, because we did a lot of the reforms in 2020, okay? But it's also complicated because the pandemic actually drove crime as well. So there was a number of different factors that did. But did crime go up? You're saying no, it's just a narrative. It didn't really go up, but it did.
No.
So violent crime went up 15%, homicide went up 15%.
And it's
Hold
gone
on,
down.
let me finish. Well, no. This is overall last 4 years, okay? So yeah, it was spiked in 2020,
Yes.
2020 and 2021.
Yes.
Then it started to slowly come down, and last year it came down a little bit. But now, where is it? It's still 15% higher than when we started on violent and crime and homicide. And from where we started, it's now up 29% on retail theft, 43% on auto theft, and 52% on car accessory theft.
Do you want to know what's significant with every single theft that he just named? Let's take a huge guess as to why that happened. What also rose by an astronomical rate since 2019 and 2020? Gas prices, and gas prices impact everything. When gas goes up, everything else shoots up because gas is the main means of transport. So gas shot up. Food is the first thing that gets impacted. Food shoots up. Then you have all these other things that start shooting up too. So why would someone steal a car part or break into a car or do retail theft? Is it because they want to, because it's fun? Or do they do it because they're struggling to put food on the table? There is a huge distinction between the two. And the fact that that is the type of crime that has gone up rather than something like, okay, something more violent, like, house break-ins or whatever. There's a reason. It's because people are struggling to put food on the table and there's no social safety net set up for people. That's why. This is what bothers me with people like Cenk, because it's like, you are a part of the problem, my guy. You don't understand that things are not that black and white.
So when you say to them, oh no, it's just a narrative, and they're like, God damn it, man, my uncle got robbed and I go to the CVS and I can't get a goddamn toothpaste. You're saying CVS, imagine that. And so when you are telling them, don't believe your lying eyes, don't believe the numbers, you should believe me, it's just a false narrative, they don't believe you, and they were right.
So as far as retail theft, is a conversation. We've had this conversation already that retail theft is down, and not only is retail theft down, I don't know where you're getting your numbers from, but retail theft in terms of like organized retail theft, in terms of crime across the board, even in 2020, the actual theft. Crime is like not the violent crime and homicides. Homicides were the only thing that spiked, okay, which is pretty consequential. It's pretty significant. Even homicides have also gone down since the major blip that they experienced in like it post 2020 and 2021. As far as like retail theft goes, many of the places that claimed that there was organized retail theft occurring openly recognized that they were using that as a way to massage their numbers. The real shrink that increased was completely adjusted to the increased foot traffic. I mean,
So
this
you're
is not
showing
even
an article from 2020. I just gave you the numbers from the last 4 years.
I know. I'm giving you. I'm showing you that like this is the article that I'm showing that says shootings and killings are up, even in that time frame. We're having a conversation that not only is wrong, it's something that the people themselves admitted to why it was wrong. That At the time, I looked at the situation. I looked at the organized retail theft. I looked at the National Retailers Association numbers, and I adjusted shrink and the percentages that contribute to shrink, and found out that the overarching number of thefts that were occurring were not actually happening as a direct consequence of like organized retail theft, because no one is going to be able to steal billions of dollars worth of merchandise by organizing retail theft. It was actually happening, and you might like this, you might appreciate this, because of automation. It was happening because normal Americans, when they go into a store and they do self-checkout, which is more beneficial for corporations because now you don't have to pay benefits for cashiers. Now you don't have to, pay a whole bunch of people to actually sit at the cash register. Now you don't have to do workers' comp. Now you don't have to do paid, family leave or anything like that, or no health care. Now you just have an automated machine. In that process, they realized that shrink would actually go up because people would just go in and maybe put a Snickers bar in there and toss it in their bag.
Two things can be true at the same time. So that point about shrinkage and automation is absolutely right. And the right wing totally ignores that. You are right to bring it up. That doesn't mean that the actual theft at the retail level didn't happen. Number one, the numbers indicate that it happened. Number two, the idea that CVS, Walgreens, all these guys were just decided to pretend that the people were going to steal this stuff and start locking it up when they weren't actually stealing it.
So, okay, let's talk about the lockups. So, for example, if you go to the Walmart in San Leandro, or you go to a lot of these, I live in Oakland, California, you go to a lot of these stores, they have a lot of their stuff locked up, and it's seemingly the most dumbest shit ever, like, deodorant or shampoo, things like that. When we look at a corporation like Walmart or CVS or Walgreens, do we genuinely think that somewhere like Walmart has to lock their things up because they are so in need of money, and them getting their stuff stolen is just like so bad that they have to lock their things up? No, they're greedy corporations. They can 100% deal with theft. They just want to be able to save more money so that they can make more money, because at the end of the day, a corporation like Walmart really only cares about how much money they make in as profit. That's all they care about. And that's why corporations do so much wage theft. You want to talk about them locking up their products because two people came in and grabbed a bottle of shampoo? Sure, we can talk about that. If you also talk about how much wage theft these companies do, because companies do big amount of wage theft every single year, and almost most of the time they never go down for it. They never get in trouble for it. And I mean, we can look at it right now. So per year, there is at least $50 billion of corporation theft a year. Total. So while they do $50 billion worth of corporation wage theft, they're locking their stupid shit up like deodorant and shampoo because they're so scared that it's going to get stolen and they're going to lose a couple dollars of profit.
It's crazy. They were actually stealing it.
No, people,
that's why they locked it up.
I know.
Do you agree with that?
Yes, but
okay. So both of those things are true.
You can't make up for billions of dollars in lost revenue.
But when
from
people go to a CVS and that shit's locked up, they get super mad.
I know, and it goes back to literally the same exact thing that we were talking about with respect to seeing homeless people and being like, "This is crime. Crime is everywhere," and instilling a sense of panic.
But crime is everywhere. And look. So now let's go to homeless people.
But you're talking about organized retail theft when this conversation has already, like, we've closed the book on that. That like CEOs and CFOs have openly
before we go to homeless people. But look, let's talk about the substance. Let's talk about the substance.
They've openly said that they lied about it. Like
no.
Yes, they did. This article is literally that.
Maybe look, you're cherry picking.
I'm not.
And you're getting to a point that they admitted something that they did wrong. That I agree with you.
Cenk has literally been cherry picking this whole entire fucking conversation. That is what you've been doing. You have been cherry picking shit, my guy. Hasan has way more patience than I do.
But I'm telling you that two things can be true at the same time. What you're pointing out is definitely right. They've also admitted many other things. They also admitted that they drove up pricing during inflation because they were price gouging and they were taking profits. They bragged it about in their shareholder meetings. That is absolutely right. But the crime is also correct.
No,
when you go to the substance of the actual laws, I voted yes on Prop 36. Did you vote no on Prop 36?
Prop 36 was increasing the penalties. Yeah, I voted no on it. Yes.
Yeah. So we have a disagreement.
Yeah.
So what were the penalties? They said for theft under $950, if you've done it 3 times, then we're going to move it to a felony instead of a misdemeanor.
Yeah.
I totally agree. Okay.
I disagree.
Yeah.
I would have never publicly admitted that I voted yes on Prop 36 Prop 36 was fully funded and pushed by corporations. It is a mass incarceration bill. That's what it is. It is a bill that promotes mass incarceration and takes us away from the rehabilitation that we've been doing since Prop 47. So the fact that he admitted it just tells me that he knows nothing about how this actually works.
Now let's go to homelessness. Again, we have, in my opinion, the corporate left. There is no corporate left. The corporate Democrats, right? And they, what I would call the extreme left, get together. And so you're absolutely right. Gavin Newsom wants to protect his real estate donors, who are among his top 2 donors, right? He wants housing prices to keep going up because the real estate guys get paid off of that. Number 2, has a ton of donors that they dole out, and allies that they dole out money to nonprofit groups. They dole out money to, we're going to buy that place and we're going to turn it into housing for the homeless. Except they never turn it into housing for the homeless. They just pay 3 times as much to buy the property.
Can I say something?
All of that stuff is true, but 2 things can be true at the same time. At the same time, on the city council level, in LA and San Francisco and Oakland, when anybody went to say, hey, listen, I don't think we should have people shooting up in public. I don't think we should do the local meth market in the middle of town.
Okay.
The extreme left would show up, the political activists. They literally threw a brick at London Breed. They thought she wasn't extreme enough. And they're like, no, liberty for the homeless. And they're like weirdo libertarians pretending to be on the left. And so they're saying, no, we should do nothing. Nothing. They have a freedom to stay on the streets.
We don't care about this. We're looking at the data.
Do you know how many times they've tried to build homeless shelters in the Bay Area and they were completely unsuccessful because rich people would come together and crowdfund $50,000 from the whole neighborhood so they could sue the whole entire government of that city so that they don't build a homeless shelter? It's happened in San Francisco multiple times. There has never been a point where people in San Francisco have come together and said liberty for the homeless. People in San Francisco are NIMBYs, not in my backyard. Meaning I am all for progressive rights as long as I don't see a homeless person in front of my house or in my street or in my area. San Francisco has one of the biggest concentration of millionaires in this whole entire country. I actually believe New York and San Francisco has the highest concentration of 1%ers in the whole entire country. So you don't fuck with them when it comes to homeless. They hate them. And that's why most of them are concentrated in Union Center, because Union Center has a bunch of government buildings, not residential buildings. You have to think about these things. Why are most of the homeless all in Civic Center, San Francisco, not congregating in other areas like the Marina or Pack Heights or, I don't know, Fillmore? It is because the government buildings that are all in Civic Center do not have the same stuck-up fucking policing that somewhere like Pack Heights, where Nancy Pelosi lives, or the Marina has, where all the trust fund babies live. So it's one of those things where it's just like they get chased out of residential areas, so they're forced to go to somewhere like Civic Center. That's why people go to Civic Center and they film all the homeless and they're like, oh my god, how dare all the homeless be here? Well, why are all the homeless people congregating in Civic Center? Have you ever thought about that? And then we have numbskulls like fucking Cenk coming on. Like, I'm sorry, I really don't mean to be rude, but it's starting to piss me off. People like Cenk coming on here saying people in San Francisco came together and said, yeah, rights for the homeless. People in San Francisco have literally never said that. I was hanging out with people from San Francisco last night. They were saying, oh, I'm so glad that this new mayor got elected because now we can be tough on crime. People in San Francisco are not the progressive fucking socialists that you guys think they are. They are rich assholes that can afford to live in places like Pack Heights because they work in fucking tech and they're dicks about it. They have no empathy towards the homeless, towards the people struggling, towards people who are actually in the deepest part of their lives. They have no empathy whatsoever. None whatsoever at all.
I'm going to pull this up. I'm going to open this image in a new tab and I'm going to zoom in. Okay. What you're doing in this situation is basically looking at just this portion,
because that is what the voters look at when they're going into this
and not
election.
Looking at, I know, but you're not looking at the overall trends of crime.
I know, but I've pointed that out 1,000 times.
I know, but
that trend that happened in the 1990s has nothing to do with the trend since
it's
2020.
It's not just 1990s. Like,
it's since 1960.
Since 2000, okay, crime has noticeably decreased and continues to do so.
But no one disagrees with that, Haas.
Okay, so when you say there's a blip and what we have to do is basically engage in even more rigorous enforcement in a state that has literally by the Supreme Court in the past been told to reduce the number of people that are in their prison system because the prisons are filled to the brim with a bunch of non nonviolent offenders with no indication that they're going to reoffend. And
But that's not what has happened at all.
saying that, no, just
These are recidivists, Haas. That's why Prop 36 fixes the problem of recidivism. If you've done it 3 times, brother, you're a
I don't
recidivist.
see. This is
right?
where we totally, completely disagree with one another. If you think that like the 3 strikes rule in any sort of implementation of like,
it goes from misdemeanor to felony. Absolutely.
more aggressive.
This is why they're calling it a bill that's going to bring us back to mass incarceration. Because when you put 3 strikes and you don't provide any kind of rehabilitation or any kind of system to where people can better themselves within society, and you kind of throw them back in there with a high recidivization, yes, they're going to end up, it's going to turn into a felony. Are you happy? They're going to continue to commit more crimes as felons. That's not going to stop them from committing crimes. That has statistically been proven for decades now. At this point, you just don't want to believe it. You don't. Cenk is over here giving all these anecdotal fucking excuses from supercuts while Hasan is literally explaining things to him one by one, and he's just not getting it.
Prosecution and more draconian punishments being implemented are a demonstrable failure universally. That's the reason why America has a higher rate of recidivism than all of the other comparable OECD nations that have significantly more tolerant approaches and significantly better solutions in terms of identifying why crime happens, which is poverty.
You're conflating 2 different issues.
I'm not.
America's prison system is awful. It needs massive reform. There's no reason for us to have this brutal, stupid system. So that it contributes to a lot of the problems that we're having. At the same time, when you say, hey, if you do this 3 times, 4 times, 8 times, 9 times, I'm still going to keep it a misdemeanor. That doesn't have anything to do with the state of our prisons. I'm not telling you to.
Does.
No, hold on. I'm not
That's the
telling
reason why they're doing it.
I'm not telling you to beat those guys. I'm not telling you to torture those guys. I'm not telling you to put them in jail for the rest of their lives. This is not 3 strikes and you're out. This is 3 strikes and it's a felony, brother. It's a felony. You're saying 18 strikes. That mother goes into the store, robs it 18 times, and you're still going to call it a misdemeanor?
Do you agree with the crime bill now of Joe Biden, the architect of the crime bill, like crime control bill? That was a successful method.
So that is a complicated calculus, because back then what they would do is they would say, and this is what I hated, and this is the criminal justice reform that I wanted, which is, oh, you smoked marijuana. That's it. We're putting you in prison for 20 years. What the? No, I don't agree on marijuana.
That's not what I asked. That's not what I asked.
No, but you're asking me a bill that has all these different parts. Some parts I agree with, and some parts I don't agree with.
I'm asking you a very specific component of the bill, 3 strikes law, which means that if
3 strikes and you're out forever. No, I don't agree with that.
Okay, so but you do agree.
That's a life sentence. Okay. I'm not saying that. This is 3 strikes
but you do
and
agree
it's a felony.
But you do agree in adding more aggressive. Adding like a felony attachment,
more aggressive
to
punishment.
Okay,
not brutal punishment, not weirdo torture punishment, but normal aggressive punishment.
Okay,
to
why
recidivists.
why don't you agree with the 3 strikes law on principle?
Because it's too draconian and it doesn't match proportionally the crime. Because your 3rd strike, like happened in Louisiana, was a guy who stole a slice of pizza, got a life sentence. No, that's disproportionate. When you smoke marijuana and they give you a life sentence or 20 years or 10 years or even 1 day, that's disproportionate.
So for you, it's $900.
So we want a criminal justice reform to bring us back into moderation, not to bring it back to a different extreme, the opposite extreme.
So petty theft being considered a felony is something that you're on board with, as long as it's not just like a slice of pizza.
No, as long as you're doing it over and over again. So if somebody goes and steals something, they're a kid, they're 14, do I want that to haunt them the rest of their lives? No, I don't. But somebody's 27 and they've now committed 8 robberies of stuff that's $850, and if you let him out, you're an idiot, you're a schmuck, and he should come to your house and rob that house over and over and over again, because you're saying, I'm cool with it, and I'm not cool with it. You do it 3 times, that means you're a criminal. This was not an accident. You did it on purpose. And I'm not saying throw the book at you. I'm just saying it's obviously a felony. People are human. They respond to incentives and disincentives. And when you say there's now no punishment, in effect, it's not real. Misdemeanor is real punishment, but unfortunately, because it gets pled down to almost nothing, it becomes in in effect no punishment, of course, normal human beings are going to react by going, okay, I guess it's illegal to steal now.
You're pairing up numbers that don't actually add up to a hyper-specific anecdote of a serial criminal that you've made up in your mind. You're making
I'm not
it
making
seem
it up.
as,
It's in the numbers.
no, it's not in the numbers because we disagree. I think the broader the broader scope of this analysis requires you to look at the actual ways in which retail theft is occurring and what is the actual contributor to the problem.
A huge percentage of the crime is committed by recidivists. I don't remember the number off the top of my head, but you guys could look it up.
No,
So
but in the
my
grand scheme
point
of things,
is-
it's not one. There's no world in which one singular person is responsible, or 1,000 people are responsible for the brunt of
When
the
you
overwhelming
say-
majority of shrink,
when you
overwhelming
say-
majority of retail theft.
When you say, Haas, that there's almost no consequences for theft under $1,000, you will get more people stealing under $1,000. That's the most obvious thing in the world, and that's exactly what happened.
No, that's not what happened.
You keep pointing out a different problem, and I'm telling you, yeah, that's also true. That's
No,
also true.
that's not what
But
happened.
Did
We-
crime
you
go
and
up?
I-
Yes.
you and I are-
So you're saying that if there's no 3 strikes on moving into a felony, that it's not going to affect people at all. Are you actually saying that?
There is no world in which people are actually contributing to the retail theft in a meaningful fashion because they're constantly going back and stealing.
You keep
That
going
is-
back to retail theft. How about the catalytic converters?
Okay.
How about property crime? How about auto theft?
Fine. But the reason why I'm using retail theft as an example is because you use it as an example.
But
and
all
it's
these
one
examples
area
are the same thing.
And,
They're
and
all
it's
going
one
up
area that I actually
because
have.
we're not punishing it.
It's one area where I have
Should we
actually
punish
looked
it?
into the data. That's the reason why
Should
I'm
we punish
using
it,
retail
or
theft.
should we say, "Oh, those poor angels"?
Crime already gets punished. That's the whole point. That's what
But
I'm
a
saying.
misdemeanor is basically not
the
punishing.
idea, no, that's not true. The idea that like criminals are not being punished at all in the state of
But
California
because of
is a
cash
ridiculous
bail.
lie.
No, but Haas, no, you're literally wrong here, factually incorrect. So Haas, are you saying if they do it 400 times, you're still going to call it a misdemeanor?
They're not going to do it 400 times. What are you talking about?
They
That's
have criminal
insane.
gangs.
I don't know what to say at this point. This is the point where you get into a debate and there's just no really fixing it, because I just think Cenk is not very educated and he doesn't want to get educated on this topic. He's speaking from anecdotal reasoning rather than actually listening to what Hasan is saying and, understanding where he's coming from. Maybe it's his ego, maybe he's stubborn, maybe he truly believes in what he's talking about. I don't know what the situation is. But it's one of those situations where they're just going to go back and forth like this on and on and on and on. And Cenk is just categorically wrong. Like, he's not right in this situation. Saying that reoffenses, most people who commit crimes are reoffenders, there's many layers to that onion that you can peel to really uncover why that's the situation. And him voting for Prop 36, that just exasperated that problem. You exasperated that problem because you're saying, okay, you should not get the chance to get rehabilitated. You should just get thrown into having a felony. And having a felony is no joke. It's extremely hard to find a job. It's extremely hard to get it off of your record if you've been a reoffender. It's, once you get a felony and you've had multiple offenses, there's honestly a very slim chance that you're going to be able to join and be a part of society in a productive way where you're not committing crimes and doing X, Y, and Z. And we know that that's statistically true. That's what led us to mass incarceration the first time around. And we're still under a mass incarcerated country. So when someone like Cenk is like, well, they're all reoffenders, yes, that's true. But by you voting in order for them to get a felony case, you exasperated that issue by a large margin, because a misdemeanor is much different than a felony. With the misdemeanor, it could be crushing monetarily and just everything else, but it's not as bad as a felony. You can still work around it. You can still get jobs. You can still reacclimate yourself into society. If you have felonies, it's going to be much harder. Yes, exactly. You can't get an apartment. You can't get loans. You can't get jobs. You can't go to school. It affects you in so many different ways. The only circumstances I've seen people with felonies actually come out and make a difference with their life is if they have someone, either a family member or a significant other, financially supporting them through and through and being extremely patient with them until they can get a job and go through all of that and, be able to reacclimate into life. If you don't have someone that can fully financially fund you and be there for you, then there's just no way. There's just simply no way. And I just don't think Cenk really understands that from like a deep deeper level. I think Cenk is just kind of regurgitating the same talking points over and over again, and I just think he really struggles with understanding like the societal structure of it. He kind of just looks at someone and he's like, well, you've committed one crime, you've committed it again, you committed it a third time, okay, fuck you, you get a felony, that's what you deserve. But it's much more deeper than that. It's much more complex than that, and I just don't think he understands that. And I think he comes from a place of privilege, and I also think he comes from a place of, well, all these leftists have turned against me, so I'm just gonna like hunker down and be of this belief because you guys all hate me either way. Do I think Hasan would have had Cenk on his stream if it wasn't his uncle? I don't think so. I could be wrong, but I don't think so, because they're fundamentally very different in their beliefs. You know, for someone like Hasan that streams 8 hours a day, Hasan ingests a lot of information every single day. And so for someone like Hasan, he's going to be able to very easily debunk someone like Cenk because it's easy. His points don't make sense. He doesn't come from a place of, facts. He comes from a place of feelings, of anecdotal personal, experiences. That's why I think Hasan is able to generally do so well debunking Cenk, because he knows what he's talking about, because this is his life. This is what he's dedicated his life to. But anyways, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe for more videos like this. I'll see you guys next time.